Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. We're talking about sex and fake orgasms today.
Yes, it's important. We teased it.
Why, Sydney? Tell us why we're talking about fake orgasms. Nobody talked about this. I've never heard about this from anyone in my life.
Are you serious?
Never.
Really?
Until we experienced
It's because
it
Josh was raised with only boys.
in our marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most guys that I talk to, I mean, I've only talked to a couple of guys about this because this is a pretty intimate topic.
That's true.
Um,
The word orgasm really freaks people out.
yeah.
Like you've talked to them and they don't really.
They're just like, what? No way.
Yeah.
There's no way my wife is
But
doing
like
that.
literally in the female world, every girl knows that she's faked. I mean, at least one. I would say much more than one, though. Especially if you've had multiple sexual partners and you're just trying to be done with that person. You've definitely faked it.
Not cool, ladies. Not cool.
It's not cool to have sex when you're not
Into
even
it.
ready. Yeah. And most guys
Not
who
cool,
are
guys.
yeah,
not cool.
Yeah, and so let's just get into the philosophy of it, I guess. Like
Yeah. Women are like diesel engines. Okay? You get them started. They're cold for about a good minute.
I just imagine this
5
is how you're
minutes.
going to talk to our son.
Okay?
Now listen here, Will.
All right. I used to have a diesel pickup, a Dodge 2500 Cummins. They're
Women
like,
are
it
like
takes
airplanes.
no,
Men are like helicopters.
no.
It takes some time for us to get off the ground, but once we're up, we're 30,000 feet, man.
Yeah, you're hard to get toned back down.
It was a shock to Josh. Like, what was this? The last time I haven't faked it in like 7 years. Thank God.
Praise
like,
God.
what a blessed marriage that I have, you
Hallelujah.
know, right? And I'm sad for you ladies that continue to fake it. You need to get honest and stop faking it.
Yep. And quit saying, well, sex is just for him. I just do it for my husband. It's like, wrong.
Yeah, see
Sex
how
is
long that
for
lasts. Like, and it feeds that idea of like you not being interested or you rejecting. And I'll say I do not like to reject. I maybe I can count on one hand how many times I've like rejected sex.
I mean, I can
since
imagine.
We've been married.
I mean, of course, we're wired differently. But
yeah,
if
we have a problem.
If I fake, no, I'm saying
I'm
if I'm saying men are wired differently.
Oh, I thought you meant us as a couple.
No, I'm saying men are wired differently. I can't imagine if I had to fake an orgasm every time we had sex. I wouldn't want to have sex either.
Right.
I'd be like, I'm good. I have a headache. I gotta go to work early. I gotta work late. I gotta do this. I come up with all thousands of millions of excuses. I'd be mowing the yard at 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I was faking it because we had gotten into our marriage. We had all the porn struggles, and I wanted to measure up to porn. I wanted to be better than porn. So I was like, well, I know as a woman that it takes a minute, and it takes like, it's not vaginal. It's not all the time. Like I know there's like a percentage of women that can. Good for y'all. Maybe we figured out some of that. This is not like a sex podcast, so we're not going to get that graphic, but everybody knows that there's the other spot north that you have to focus on for women. And sadly, so many guys come into a marriage not putting focus on that. What? Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
You said come.
Okay, this is a sex podcast, okay? Like, it's a porn addiction podcast, but also we have to talk about sex because the core issue of porn is that porn is a fantasy. It's an image.
Right.
And it portrays a certain thing. And we're talking about the reality of it. Like, the reality of it is that kids are being exposed to porn as early as age 8. We were exposed to age 5. I was.
Yeah.
How long does that warp your brain to where you get to actual sexual intimacy and you don't know how things work, but you've seen girls screaming and faking it. And if you know the porn industry, you know, like, these porn stars like hate each other. They're doing this for their money and then they run.
Yeah. A lot of them are on drugs.
Yeah, drugs. They're miserable
while they're filming these videos. So you're literally, most of you are watching porn. You're watching men and women who are just out. They're just numb to everything.
Yeah.
They're not even
I mean,
there.
they're being trafficked, some of them. And so, if you know that Joshua Broome, is that his name right now? The ex-porn star who's making his big go around in the Christian world right now, because now he's like a pastor or something. I've listened to his story, and it's so sad. He says that when a porn star dies, which is usually like premature death, like from suicide or something, the porn websites will run their greatest hits of the person who died because they want to capitalize on that, on the news of that person dying. So they're like, oh, well, let's get our views, let's get our ad money going on this person now that they're dead. And so we all know it's a messy, sad industry. So I'm just saying we've learned from that, and then we brought that. I feel like our first few years having sex was actually influenced by porn. Like, oh, well, this is what I've seen. This is how I've seen people behave. Right. And so now we're going to act that out on each other. And
wow.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we actually just do what feels good. Now we we watch each other. We make sure, like, is this person enjoying this? Like, okay, they are. Do they feel loved? Do they feel safe? Are we comfortable? That's what drives sex now, which is so beautiful. Right. Like, it's actually about each other rather than what we've seen.
You have to be able to ask your spouse, does this feel good? And you have to be okay with the response of, no, that doesn't really feel good. Mm-hmm. Like, your hands are rough. You need some lotion. Yeah. Or we need something. We need some help.
Yes.
Like, your hands are rough, or no, you're going too fast, or no, you're going too slow, or no, you're going, you just need to
drop
ask.
all the pride. Just because you watched a bunch of porn doesn't mean you're an expert in sex.
No.
In fact, the people who are having the best sex are monogamous, long-term relationships.
Yep.
And I'll say our sex life has only improved since we've gotten away from all of the imagery and focused on each other. I mean, it's great. I mean, don't you want someone to be an expert in your body?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. And God designed it that way. God's the one who made the parts. Like Jonathan Pokluda was saying that in his porn talk. I'll link it below. It's really good. It's by Watermark.
Yeah.
God designed all the nerve endings to be where he put them. There's a reason for that. Yeah. And I think, like a woman, and getting back to faking orgasms, God put different nerve endings in a different place for women, different than what a man actually uses, which is so funny. And I've heard if there were as many nerve endings in the vaginal canal as there were in the head of a penis, childbirth would be absolutely excruciating.
Oh, right.
And I was like, duh. Because I remember being kind of upset with God. Like, why did you make women like this? This is so annoying.
Yeah.
But, he knows what he's doing. He's creator of everything. And so anyway, faking orgasms. Yes, I did fake it for the first 3 years of our marriage. And I'll say, just from a very worldly, hateful standpoint, it was glorious when I finally told Josh that I had been faking it, because I was so hurt over the porn. I was so upset that nothing was working. I was like, here I am faking it all the time, and yet I'm dissatisfied. And you're still looking at porn. Like, what's the deal? You know what? I've been faking it all these years. You know nothing about sex, basically. That was my angle with that confession. And I think, let's hear, how did that make you feel?
Insignificant. Insufficient.
Emasculated, probably.
Emasculated. But, I mean, I deserved it. I mean, it was what it was. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know any better. There was nobody telling me this.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were telling me this during the time, I would have been like, nah, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she is. Because I didn't know.
Right.
I had no idea. You'd think you would know the anatomy of the opposite sex from watching porn, but you really don't.
Right.
You just see bodies and flesh and liquids going everywhere, and just it doesn't it shows you very little, and it shows you zero of the most important part of sex, which is intimacy, which is personal connection with your spouse. And it shows you zero of that.
Yeah, because that can only be experienced by the people engaging. And it's such a gift. And I think that day that I confessed that I had been faking it, we still had a long road ahead of us with the porn addiction. This is long before the mentors came. But it definitely started something where it was like, I finally got real. And it was devastating because then Josh was like, well, crap, moving forward, I want you to be real with me. I want you to be honest and not fake it. But I had built walls from being hurt, and I was like, no, it's just easier to put up and shut up. But actually, it's not. In the long run, you're robbing your marriage of intimacy. You're robbing your marriage bed of intimacy.
Yeah.
You're robbing your husband of his manhood. God designed a man to please a woman. He didn't design a woman to please a woman. He didn't design you to please yourself.
Amen.
He designed a man. He designed your husband to please you.
Yep.
And read Song of Solomon. It's very intimate. It's very sweet. It's very romantic.
Yep.
And that's how God designed it, to be each one pursuing each other.
Yeah, and if you have questions on specifics of how we do this, I think I would give those specifics in an email form to, individuals emailing.
Just
not for the video.
Very informational.
Not for the podcast general audience, but if you have questions, email us.
Right,
go to our website.
We don't want you looking up porn, getting educated on how to get a woman to orgasm or get your wife to orgasm.
Right. No.
But
Come find us.
There's a godly way to go about it to learn.
thegoodfightmarriage.com.
Yes. Get on our email list and send us an email, or I'll email you back and you can email us directly from there. And
we'll tell you how we've done it. Managed to
not fake it, either person, for 7+ years. I've literally never faked it. And I pretty much always, I get mine, you get yours. Pretty much every single time, unless we're in a major hurry.
Right.
And that's been so great.
Yes.
Because also I think it's just God designed it on purpose, because it says it's okay to stop being intimate for a time, to stop having sex for a time in your marriage, for fasting and praying.
Right.
But then it says, come back together or the devil will.
1 Corinthians 7, verse 5, it says, do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer. But then come together again, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control.
Yeah, so the Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. That's huge, because I know that if I would have kept faking that, I was getting attention from some guy at work. That would have been real tempting, because it's well, my husband doesn't please me. My husband doesn't have a clue. Yeah. I'm keeping him in the dark meanwhile, which is not okay. It just gives room for any other man to I remember this one dumb guy would tell me I was beautiful in this drive-through that I worked at a bank. And as dumb as I thought that guy was, because I was keeping my husband at arm's length, I was like, oh, he thinks I'm beautiful. But now that we're so solid, and I'm like, my husband pleases me, my husband takes care of me, I'm good on my end. If someone looks my way or asks me for my number or something, I'm like, sorry, I'm married. Happily married.
Right.
And it's great to say, I'm claimed, and I don't want anything else. I'm satisfied in my marriage.
And same for me. I'm satisfied in our marriage. I know that there are a lot of unhealthy sex lives out there. Yeah. And most porn addicted people do not have I would say 99% of them probably do not have a healthy sex life.
Yeah, there's a lot
It's basically impossible to be addicted to porn and have a healthy actual sex life.
Right.
When you're, it's just not possible. I think the first step is, wean yourself off of the pornography and your husband and get that situated where it's not an everyday thing. And
we talked about that in the previous podcast. There's steps that we took that I think every sex addict or porn addict has to take.
Yep.
You've got to cut everything off.
Yeah.
But then the next step, I think, is getting actually intimate. Like you've got to heal for some time, and then you've got to work toward, pleasing your wife, please your husband, enjoy each other. God put you together to enjoy each other. And
I've used this analogy before of the fire. The marriage bed is like a fire. So fires go out. The healthy sex life is a fire with good, strong embers.
Yeah.
So that whenever the moment comes, you throw a log on the fire.
Yes.
And immediately that log catches.
That is a really good illustration.
From the embers.
I actually haven't heard you say this before.
I've said this to some guys that I've talked to.
Oh.
And so, but you've got to keep those embers going.
Yes.
There's got to be oxygen to the embers. There's got to be the right containment of those embers.
And
you
we're
have
not
to
just
protect.
talking about foreplay. We're talking about honesty,
conversations, friendship, relationship,
finances figured out, kids figured out.
Right.
Like, and not saying you're perfect, but at least you're constantly communicating and staying on the same page.
More positive interaction than negative.
Yeah.
Is going to keep those embers going. Okay. So then when the time comes and the kids are asleep and everything worked out magically where, wow, we've actually got a minute to breathe, then those embers are warm. They're ready.
It's on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to keep the embers. And every negative interaction, you've got to think of every negative interaction is water. Water on the embers. Every time. You come home, husband, you come home pissed off because work sucked and blah, 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 blah. Okay. You know the chances of you guys being intimate that night, 0. You came home with a bad attitude. You popped off about something that didn't get done, and now your wife feels unloved, and you feel disrespected, and that's it. Try again tomorrow. Come back again tomorrow and try again. Get the fire going, though. So some of you don't even have a fire at all, okay?
Yeah.
You poured it out a long time ago.
Yeah.
We're
there's
talking
hurt,
with a couple.
There's resentment. There's bitterness.
Sydney's been talking with a couple that they haven't had sex since the beginning of this year. My heart breaks for them because I know he's struggling, the husband, with pornography. What you have to do is you have to lay down your pride and your selfishness, and you have to start thinking about the other person. And you have to quit coming at sex from how can I get what I want? How can I get what I need? How can I get my fix? To how can I serve my wife who I chose to marry?
Right.
Like, grow up.
Right. Take
be
ownership
a man,
of your decision.
Own your decision. You decided to marry this woman. Now give her the marriage that she signed up for. Give her the sex life she deserves. Give her the attention that she deserves. Speak well of her. Help her.
Yes.
Do things around the house. Hug her. Non-sexual touch.
Yep.
These things are critical.
Your life blossom from, he who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Yeah.
She becomes a good thing because you realize that you have a wife in your house that you're ignoring or that you're looking at porn instead of her. There's just, I've found, not to toot my own horn, but I become more of a blessing when he dies for me, like Christ died for the church, or like, I'm just like, oh man, I am such a blessing. I want to cook a meal, or I want to do whatever it is.
Yeah. The days when I have done a good job, when I've been faithful in the little things of, building you up and saying you're beautiful and, oh, you look nice. Talk about what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what you like, what you don't like about your current sex life. And especially if your guy is addicted to porn, he's going to have some things that he's doing in the marriage bed that are totally learned behaviors that are going to be weird, more than likely. Like choking, bondage, BDSM
hair
types
pulling,
of things.
spanking, all that stuff. It's like, that may work for some people, and I'm not saying it does or doesn't for us. I'm not going to get into the details of what works for us, but there's some things that maybe you're neglecting, or maybe you're too rough and you just don't realize that a woman really, it doesn't take a whole lot. It's just, it's a certain technique. It's a certain, and I'm not saying every woman's the same, but I've talked to a lot of girls. I am a woman. I understand the anatomy, and I understand that, there's just a way to go about it. And I think a lot of men skip over some of that. And why would you expect your porn addicted husband to move forward in a healthy sexual manner if he can't even please you sexually? That's the training ground. So let's get them on the training ground of what actual sex is. And I want to unpack this in another episode, but we went to a conference several years ago that Deb Hirsch, if you've heard of her, she wrote a book called Redeeming Sex. And she used to be a lesbian drug addict, and she's an amazing lady from Australia. But she talked about how she believes that some men don't even enjoy, most heterosexual men don't even enjoy heterosexual sex. And it's so funny to me because the more I thought about what she said, I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Like, men love this fantasy and this idea of sex, and so do women. And they'll engage in pornographic books or porn, but they won't engage in the actual act of like what it is, which is like a little sweaty, a little messy, a little funky, a little like awkward sometimes. Like, that's actual sex. And so it's just that challenge of like, you've got to experience it. You've got to give your husband time to experience your body, and you've got to be honest, and you guys have got to talk about it.
Yeah. And the elephant in the room, if you've let yourself go, that's another aspect of the conversation where a lot of people, you've had several kids, or, most guys are overweight.
Yeah.
So,
and like, sex requires stamina, and pleasing your partner requires stamina.
So there's a part of this that is also health related. Like, different people are going to have different struggles, is what I'm saying. And so obviously none of this is cookie cutter. None of this just applies broad spectrum to everyone. But, if you're married, you need to be having sex regularly.
Right.
And
biblically.
And if you're not, then you're leaving the door open. As Paul literally says, you're giving the enemy a cracked door to walk through.
Yep.
So,
and we believe that starts with just total and complete honesty in the marriage bed. Wives, if you don't get to your point of satisfaction, if you don't orgasm, you need to say that, or you need to tell him, I'm not going to get there today. Like, mentally, I'm not there.
Right.
And that way he can just cancel it out and be like, okay, let's just do a quickie then and move on. And you promise to get each other next time. Like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Don't make it a big deal. It's not a measure of a man. It's not a measure of you. Maybe that day you were in a hurry. I mean, I know we've done quickies before. Like, I had to go to work or something, and I'm already in my like workspace, and women aren't good at compartmentalizing. So I'm just very like, okay, it's not going to happen for me. And that's okay today. And Josh always promises like, I'll get you next time or whatever. And that's great. I think that communication, it's so trustworthy, and it's so solid. It's so kind. To be clear is to be kind. Yeah. That's the opposite of the saying we were saying earlier, but be clear, be kind.
Clear communication. Talk about the awkward topics. Yeah. Because neither of you are satisfied. Neither of you are happy in your marriage.
Right.
Neither of you are happy with your sex life. So what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
The worst that could happen is you don't talk about it, and you continue to do what you're doing now that you hate.
Right. And I'll say, for men, nothing is more of a turn on for a woman than your man wanting to please you. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, you want to like take care of me? You want to please me? Like, you're already halfway there. Like, that's already a turn on. So if you think it's like cumbersome or too much work, get off the porn and learn your wife's body and have some patience. And once you get it, she will be open to you.
Yeah. Do the hard things.
Yeah.
The hard things of sex and marriage, like it's not always this hot, steamy, sexy thing that porn makes it look like.
Right.
But it's also holy and beautiful.
Yeah.
And ordained by God.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to
and
do
hot and sexy also.
Sure, but it's not always.
But it doesn't have to. It can be
that.
sweet, but you're making it sound like that's the best
no,
way to have sex.
No,
like, that's not the standard.
That's not
that's
the standard.
Porn standard.
Right.
But that's not
like,
real
that's
life.
That's not what we're going for, is what I'm saying. We're going for something that is sustainable.
Yes.
And what's sustainable is, hey, this is what I like.
Right.
And, oh, okay, let me try to do that.
Yeah.
Take the focus off myself for once.
Yeah.
And think about my wife as God created this woman to be married to me. For some reason, he blessed me with this woman, and he's entrusted her heart and her life and her pleasure and her body with me. I'm responsible for these things.
Man.
And I'm not responsible for my own pleasure, my own fantasies.
Right. I'm responsible.
Fulfilling those things. And so the enemy and the world and our sinful nature has totally perverted this topic.
Yeah.
And totally made it untouchable, because what the enemy wants for you to continue on the path that you're on. He wants you to keep looking at porn. He wants you to never have sex with your wife or your husband ever again, because he knows that if you stop looking at porn and you start having sex and you start getting intimate with each other, you are a wrecking ball for hell.
Yeah. Every
day of your life. Then you start having kids, or you raise your kids in a healthy marriage. You show your kids what a healthy marriage looks like, and then you just proliferate.
And you talk about sex in a healthy way from day one,
with your kids.
It could just be like, oh yeah, when you go potty, you wipe like this. You talk about body parts in the home early in life to where by the time they're ready for that, it's just, it's redeemed. It's known. It's not taboo. It's normal.
Yeah. Let's remove the taboo, the stigma from talking about this, especially in the church.
Yes.
Because here's the thing. The stigma has actually created a worse problem. In the church, in the Christian church, porn addiction is higher than in the regular world. I think 76% of porn usage comes from the Bible Belt
states.
Yeah. So if you think about it, most of those people are going to church, and most of those guys are looking at porn. If you look around the room at church on Sunday, 76% of the guys in your congregation are looking at porn on a regular basis. Maybe not totally addicted to it per se, but looking at it on a regular basis.
But when they're stressed, or when they go on business trips, or when no one's in the room, when no one's watching.
Yeah. So sex is important. Ladies, quit faking your orgasms. Talk to your husband.
Yeah.
Tell him.
Hey,
this is what pleases me. This is what I want from you.
Do you want to learn my body? Let's not learn from porn, though.
Yes. Let him satisfy you, and you satisfy him. And surely the porn won't disappear, but it certainly helps to get that in order.
Yes. And to some people who you're only a few years into your marriage, and some of this sounds like vanilla or blah, like we're not trying to make sex something that it's not, and we're not trying to like water down your fun. We are talking from a standpoint of being sexually active for 14 plus years, I think, us two, and seeing, oh wow, we want to be sexually active. We want to have sex the rest of our lives together. How can we do this in a sustainable way?
Yeah.
Like he said, it's not this like crazy thing every time. I mean, sometimes we'll do like wild stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that in that place. Wow. But that's few and far between. Like we're in a season of raising our little babies. Like this season is very strategic and routine. And I can't get bored with that. I can't go commit adultery because this is the season that we're in, you know?
Right.
And so we're coming from a place of like wisdom and being proactive in this area.
Okay.
We're being proactive, not reactive. Like, okay, we're going to be in this season for a while, so let's make the most of it while we can and take care of each other so that the devil doesn't enter into this relationship and tempt us.
And I would say also, women, your guy is going to know. I knew when Sydney just wanted to do things to prevent me from looking at porn.
Right.
And I felt that, and it felt icky.
Yeah. Like Josh would tell me, I don't even want to have sex if you're just doing this so that I don't look at porn.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, I'm worried that you're going to look at porn though. So we need to do it at some point. And
he's still going to look at porn.
Yeah. And this is like early in our relationship.
Yeah.
Like
he's still going to look at porn if you have sex with him so that he doesn't look at porn.
Right. It's got to be like both all in, which hurts a lot for someone who builds walls. But
yeah. So we can wrap it up there.
Yeah. And we will probably be addressing generational curses in this area in the next topic that I want to cover.
Yeah.
Put any questions down below if you guys have any.
Keep hoping.
Yep.
Keep praying. Pray for your husband. Pray for your wife. Keep fighting. And fight the good fight.
Yep.
Your marriage is worth fighting for. Your marriage is worth saving. And there's hope.
Yep.
There's
if
always
just one
hope.
person is willing, and if two people are willing,
yep,
you guys will be unstoppable and you can get through any challenge that you guys are facing right now.
Amen. We've done it. You can do it.
See you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye.